which is still around at this point. And he teaches us 3 teachings. Today is going to be the third one of the 3. And the Maharal points out that these 3 parallel the 3 facets of Avodas Hashem. The first teaching of having a Talmidav Shel Aharon, Ohev Shalom, Rodef Shalom, Ohev Esebros, Mekarvan Torah, that teaching was Ben Adam Lachavero. The Hillel was teaching us the way that you're supposed to relate to other people. The second teaching of Hu Haya Omer, Nagad Shema, Avad Shmei, etc. we learned yesterday, which is Ben Adam L'Makom, and that's what we spoke about yesterday, how you are supposed to view yourself as the conduit through which Avodat Hashem is coming through you. That's the Ben Adam L'Makom. And today, Hu Haya Omer, Im Ein Ani Li Mili is referring to Ben Adam La'atzmo, the way that a person relates to himself. That's the Maharal's teaching of how these 3 teachings of Hillel parallel the 3 aspects of Avodas Hashem. So let's go through the Mishnah. The section number 1, Hu Haya Omer, Im Ein Ani Li Mili, if I'm not for myself, who will be for me? A basic teaching, seemingly, that a person has to take responsibility for himself. Rashi says that on a pshat level, that it's referring here to mitzvahs she'iev shar l'kayim al yedei acherim. There are certain mitzvahs which I can appoint the shaliach to do for me. There are certain mitzvahs which only I can do. And that's what Rashi says here, Im lo akayem ani et mitzvot, mi mekayem etam bishvili. There are certain mitzvahs only I can fulfill, no one else can fulfill for me. So on a pshat level, Im ein ani li mili is referring to mitzvahs that I have to do. No one else, like putting on tefillin, for example, no one else can put on tefillin for me. The second section of the Mishnah, Ukasha'ani l'atzmi ma'ani. This teaching on a pshat level is one shouldn't be selfish. If HaKadosh Baruch Hu put you in the world and you're only thinking about yourself, then what is your life worth? Ukasha'ani l'atzmi ma'ani. And the third teaching within Ben Adam La'atzmo is Ve'im lo achshav eimatai, seize the moment, carpe diem. If you see an opportunity comes your way to do a mitzvah, do the mitzvah, don't let it pass. That's the teaching on a pshat level. We're going to be using Rabbeinu Yonah today as our guide. He speaks on each extremely. We'll hear it again and get a deeper understanding. Hu Haya Omer, Hillel would say, Im ein ani li mili. Says Rabbeinu Yonah. Im lo achiach atzmi ve'ezdarez v'mitzvot, mili lo checheni ulezarazeni. Rabbeinu Yonah is understanding this Mishnah is talking about one's will, one's motivation, one's enthusiasm. How does a person accomplish his mission? Like within what Rabbeinu Yonah said, we're speaking here about Ben Adam La'atzmo. So this Mishnah is going to give us guidelines on how a person can maximize the unique mission that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave to him. It's going to give us the tools of how to do that. So starts the Mishnah by saying, Im ein ani li mili, says Rabbeinu Yonah, there are 2 sources from other people, giving him inspiration, events that take place in his life which teach him that message, and one is from within. Rabbeinu Yonah says, Ki ha'it'ororut acherim tovhu lefi sha'ah. And this is a very important statement. When you receive inspiration from someone else, it will last as long as you are connected to the other person. So if you're sitting in a shiur and the rabbi says something mind-blowing and inspiring, or if you're watching a beautiful sunset and you're feeling a recognition of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in this world, or if Hashgacha Pratis story just happened to you and you're aware of it because someone just told you about it and you're hearing from him, then as long as you're in that situation where the rabbi is still speaking, or just after when you're just thinking it through, or when someone just tells you the story, that will last as long as you're in that moment. It's like you're being charged by someone from the outside. It won't last longer than that. That doesn't mean to say it's not beneficial. We'll see in a minute how it's beneficial. But since it generally need the outside to keep you going. Mashallah ma'adav. There were 2 boys who were in yeshiva, and they both had issues with waking up for shachris. The one boy had a mindset of, well, if someone wakes me up, I can get up. If he doesn't, he doesn't. And then he arranged for the madrich of Keren B'Yavneh to come by his room every morning and wake him up. And it worked well. The madrich came, he woke up, and he came to shachris on time. The other person said, the madrich is helpful, but I need to get up because I need to get up. And he started thinking about, his life, and he started thinking about what he's going to do with his life, and he started thinking about how if he doesn't get up, then it's just going to be a waste of hours upon hours of his life, and he's going to wake up groggy eventually, and he's going to feel regret. And he still needed madrich. He still needed the madrich, but only for a short amount of time. And once he got into a habit of waking up at the right time, he said to the madrich, okay, I'm fine now, I don't need you anymore. The nafka mina was ben azmanim. When the madrich wasn't around anymore, the first person who trained himself to only wake up when the madrich got him up, and he, Hashem, you know my good intention. I wanted to get up for shacharit, but there was no madrich. What do you want from me? He'd made his source of motivation in the outside. As long as your source of motivation is in the outside, then you won't be self-regenerating. You won't be charging yourself, and the motivation won't last. It will be the other person's responsibility. And it's an interesting point because I want to take this point a little deeper. If you think about which voice you hear speaking within yourself, do you speak in I or do you speak in you? When you're trying to give yourself motivation, do you say, I should be doing something? I want to be doing something? I wish I could do such and such? Or do you say, you know, Tzvi, you really should be waking up on time? There's a big difference between the two. If you say, I should be doing, well, should is a problematic word there. But if you say, I want to do, then it's coming from an inner place. There's a chance that it will last long term. As long as you're saying, you know, you really should be doing. And even if you say an I, but it's from the outside, it's saying, I really should be doing, kind of in third person, even though it's first person, it's like, should be doing, one day will do. That voice represents how you were educated. Because when you grow up initially, you feel tired and you want to stay in bed. So you say, I want to stay in bed, and you align yourself with the desire to stay in bed. Then the parent figure comes, or the madrich figure comes, and they say, you should be getting up. So you train yourself to say, I want to stay in bed, but our external voice is saying to me, you should be getting up. Now that's normal and understandable for the initial stage of learning. That is the way to initially learn. Otherwise, how would you gain the knowledge of what's appropriate? Like a young child doesn't know how to make a bracha. You train him to make the bracha. It comes from the outside initially, but then he learns to make the bracha himself. A child initially wouldn't think to say thank you to a parent. So the parent says, say thank you, say thank you, say thank you. Eventually he gets it, say thank you. He understands why it's important to say thank you. He wouldn't have without the parent. And then he self-generating, where he says thank you of his own will. So says Rabbeinu Yonah, if your source of motivation and inspiration continues to come from the outside, it will only last as long as you're being inspired by someone else. It only lasts for that moment. But when you start coming to serve Hashem from your own inner place, then you'll start generating of your own accord why you think it's valuable. Let's say someone's trying to convince you to buy something. So they're trying to convince you to buy a car. So you're in the beginning not so keen on this car, and then they say, well, why don't you take it for a test drive? And you say, okay, I'll take it for a test drive. And the salesman says to you, drive it around your community, show it to your friends, and see what you feel after that. So you say, okay, I'll do that. So you get in the car and you drive around, and you visit friends, and all your friends see you, and your family sees you. And slowly but surely, your identity starts to become tied up with the car. Because your friends say, oh, nice car, is it new? And you say, oh, I'm thinking about it. Yeah, it suits you, it's perfect. Tafur alecha, as they say in Hebrew. And you start to say, yeah, look, I'm driving my car. I can see myself with this car. By the time you go back to the salesman, he doesn't need to sell it to you anymore. It's not coming from the outside anymore. Now you've aligned yourself with this car. You now feel you want the car because you want it, not because he's telling you to take it. So initially, in motivation, you will need something external, because otherwise, how would you even know or think to align yourself with that thing? But once you've started identifying from an inner place, you've contemplated yourself, what am I doing here? How does it suit me? How will I develop myself? How will I grow close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? And you've started saying, I want this because I want it. Not just because someone else is telling me about it, but I inherently believe in it. Then you'll be able to fulfill Hillel's words, Im ein ani li, if I'm not for myself, meaning if I'm not moving from stage 1 to stage 2, moving away from needing someone else to inspire me to having decided that this is important to me from within, then then no one else's words of inspiration will have any words. Only if I've decided that I want it will have an effect. So that's the first section, Im ein ani li, mi li, based on Rabbeinu Yonah. I want to take that first step a little deeper. Michtav Meliyahu, Chelek Dalet, of Dessler, he writes the same idea of Rabbeinu Yonah, but he just says it very beautifully. He says like this, Im ein ani li, mi li. The Yetzer Hara is fighting with you about who is the ani, who is the self-identification. When you've got to that point that we just described, that you identify yourself with your neshama, and that you want to do good, then you will be able to go close to Hashem. But the Yetzer Hara's entire battle is not on each Avera, do this Avera, do that Avera. That would be a very tiring, weary battle for him to fight. Rather, he goes straight to the core of the matter. He says, identify yourself with my voice. When I say do bad, don't just think the Yetzer Hara wants me to do bad. Rather think I want to do bad. Once he's got you to that place, once he's stolen the ani, once he's got you identifying yourself with him, then there's nothing to talk about anymore. You'll just be doing Averas fully. Mashallah ma'adavadome. And this is the same idea we just said now, but in the negative. Imagine you have a cult that are trying to take a boy away from his family and his community and get him to join the cult. So as long as they're in the initial stages of and not having brainwashed him yet, then the parents can come and they can say, what are you thinking? What are you doing? Move away. And he says, yeah, I don't know what got into me there, and he can move away. But once the cult have got the boy to identify his sense of self with their values, then even if the parents come and try and say to the boy, it's crazy, what are you doing? He'll say, but this is what I want. This is what I want. At that point, the cult don't even need to fight anymore because the boy's already identified himself with the negativity. So the Rambam, the famous Rambam in Hilchos Gerushin says that the inner core of the will of the Jew is to do the will of Hashem. That's why you're allowed to beat him until he said, Kofeh ad she'omar rotzeani. You can beat him until he says, I want, because we know that the neshama, the inner core sense of self of a Jew is the will of Hashem. That's the inner core sense of self. What Hillel here is describing is that ani, im ein ani li, if my sense of self, my identity, isn't for my inner world, for my neshama, mili, who's going to be? I mean, the Yetzer Hara has stolen the sense of myself. There's no hope for me to get back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So that's the first, that's a deeper understanding of the first sense of the Mishnah. A sense of self-identification, aligning myself with my neshama, not looking to the Yetzer Hara to identify as the self, that's for sure. But even without the Yetzer Hara, not even looking for external people to give me the motivation. Rather, I need to grow my own legs. I need to become independent and recognize that my will to serve Hashem has to come from my inner world, not from other people telling me, and certainly not from identifying with the Yetzer Hara. That's the first section of the Mishnah of what Hillel's teaching on a deeper level. Im ein ani li mi li. If the sense of identification of myself is not for me, I won't be able to grow close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now the second section, this one is mind-blowing. Whenever you see an idea in Torah sources which looks to you like it doesn't really make sense, you should know that you've hit gold. Because the Torah is far deeper. Reiku mikem. If you see something as false here, then you know that there's something false within you. And when you look deeper into that source, you will find gold. So when I was reading this commentary of Rabbeinu Yonah, he brings a mashal, which he's quoting from Avos to Rabbi Nassan. And at first look, it looks like this mashal just doesn't make sense. There's an obvious question on it. But one of my Rebbeim that I learned from, Rabbi Shochatovich, he explained it in a way which will give so much more profound depth to understanding, a tool and service of Hashem. The second statement is, Kishani la'atzmi ma'ani. So on the surface level, we described it as a person shouldn't be selfish. He shouldn't just be looking out for himself. Rather, he should be looking out for other people as well. Ukashani latzmi ma'ani, if I'm just for myself, what am I? Now, Rabbeinu Yonah here, he quotes a medrash from Avos Rabbi Nassan, a mashal, which seems very hard to understand. Mashal la'mahadav adoma. I'm quoting Rabbeinu Yonah. Mashal la'melech she'natan sadeh la'avadav. This could be compared to a king who gave a field to his servants to work. Upasaki mahem b'shloshim kor lashana. And he said they have to work a certain amount, shloshim kor, which is a large amount. Tarchu ba harbeh. They worked very hard. Vasu chamisha korim. And all they were able to do was 5 kor. They weren't able to get even close to what the king demanded of them of 30. They were only able to reach 5. Amar lehem hamelech, the king said to them, maybe he shouted at them, Halo pasaktem emi l'shloshim kor. But surely we had an agreement of 30 kor. So they were trying to defend themselves. They said, Amrulo, Sadesh natata lanu isibaris. What could we do? The field that you gave us was very low quality. Tarachnu baharbeh. We worked very hard. But lo yachalnu. It was impossible for us. Lo tzim mimenu yoter. That's the end of the story. And then Avos Rabbi Nassan continues and says, that's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to us. Now, when you read that story, whose side would you be on? Who would you align yourself with in that story? The king made a demand which was unreasonable. The people worked as hard as they could. And now he's coming and making a tana against them, a claim against them. Why didn't you do according to what we'd agreed? What do you want from them? How could this be a mashal for Hashem? Hashem never gives us a test that we can't handle. The Gemara at the beginning of Avodah Zarah. Ein HaKadosh Baruch Hu ba b'tzurniyav al briotav. Hashem never gives us, he doesn't come against us and claim against us things that we weren't able to do. So how could it be that Hashem, who knows he's giving us ziboris, he knows he's giving us a Yetzer Hara and a great challenge, and we can't accomplish more. So how is he saying, I expect more from you, and then making a claim against us when we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing? That's a screaming question from this medrash that Rabbeinu Yonah quotes. And Rabbeinu Yonah quotes it and explains it, but he doesn't explain that point. Like, I would be stuck on this and say, I'm with the servants. I'm not with Hashem in this. Like, it would be hard for me to get Musa from this point when I would say, Hashem, it's unreasonable what you're asking for. Let's look a little deeper and get a deeper understanding. There's a concept called limiting beliefs, which has a interpretation or a benefit from understanding that idea on a human level, on, let's say, not a Torah level, but a Torah would certainly agree with it. It's a very true point, and it's going to benefit us. But what Rabbeinu Yonah here is taking that same concept of limiting beliefs far, far, far beyond what the modern application of that idea is. Limiting beliefs is when a person has a task in front of him, he will only be able to accomplish according to the degree that he believes he's able to do. So if you're able to run at a certain pace, and you believe that you can't run more than a certain pace, then even if you run your maximum, your legs will only take you as fast as you believe from the beginning you're able to do. Because you've limited yourself and your belief. If you come to learn a certain amount of pages or get a certain amount of depth, if you have it in your mind, a bug that says, if I haven't read Rashi after 2 times, I won't be, if I've read it once and I've read it a second time and I didn't understand it, there's no way I'll understand it after. If that's the limiting belief that you put in your mind, then there's no way you'll break it, because you'll read Rashi once, you won't understand. You'll read Rashi a second time, you understand, and you'll say, oh, you see, that proves my point. I read Rashi twice and I can't understand. So what about trying it a 3rd time? The person would never think to do that, because he has a limiting belief that he's not able to get beyond that. And it's true also in human relationships. If I think of someone as being, you can't talk to him, he's mean, there's no way I can get through to him, then the way that I'll speak to him will be a way of, I'll try a little bit, see if I can get through to him, get a little tiny bit of resistance. You see, it didn't work, I tried. But that's because that's how much you believed in him. If you would have believed in him more, if you wouldn't have had a limiting belief and you would believe in him more, maybe you would be able to access more. If you ask someone to help you with something, if you're sure they're going to say no, then when you ask them, you'll say, right, you can't help me with this and this. And they'll say, right, yeah, I knew it. But that's because you asked them in a way with a limiting belief. You asked them and you said, right, you can't help me. So you program them within your limiting belief. So that's how they answer you. Because if you would have said to yourself first, I believe this person is generous. I believe this person is kind. I believe this person is willing and wants to help. And then you approach them and you say, I have a project. I'm sure you'll want to join me in it. Could you help me out doing this and this? They may say no initially, but you'll push through further. And you'll say, it'll be really beneficial if you could help me. And I believe that together we'll be able to be successful in it. They'll say, okay. You ask them in a way that you believe in them, they'll say yes. So they respond to that. So it's true the way you relate to others and the way you relate to yourself. That's the concept of limiting beliefs. You will be able to accomplish according to the degree that you believe you're able to accomplish. Now, let's take that not yet in Rabbeinu Yonah, because it won't. That what I just said so far won't help us with our mashal, but it's a step towards. That's very helpful to understand why you should always imagine and believe, not imagine, but authentically believe that you can do more than you initially think, because you'll have a higher level of productivity. That's even without Torah, we're saying this. If you have a limiting belief that you can only learn a certain amount of time without taking a break, then when that moment comes, that time comes, you'll say, oh, 40 minutes, I can't learn more than 40 minutes without a break, and you'll go take a break. But if you say, you know, I think I can learn an hour without taking a break, let me try. And you believe in yourself that you can, you'll find that you can. And you'll be able to push your limits. So break the limiting beliefs, recognize them first. Say, I can only do 40 minutes. Recognize yourself saying that. Say, is that true? Let me challenge that. I think I can do an hour. I believe I can do an hour. Challenge yourself, push it. And suddenly you'll notice you can. So on a simple level, it's valuable to take you further. So that's the ground level concept. Now that doesn't help us so much with Rabbeinu Yonah's mashal, or the Tana Debeir Nosson mashal, Avos Rabbeinu Nosson's mashal, because here it was really they were doing their best here, right? The language that it uses in the Medrash was meaning here it doesn't sound like they have a limiting belief. They were trying their hardest. It was the land was Ziboris. It was something objective. So it doesn't sound like it's on the level that we were just describing. So now I want to take the idea of a limiting belief, not just on the way that, let's say, psychology uses it, on a simple, very, very valuable, extremely valuable level, on that first level, but that's without Torah. Let's bring it into a much deeper understanding by putting a Torah concept into it. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when he relates to us, he relates on two different levels. He relates on the level what we're able to do, and he relates on the level of our desire of what we could do in theory. Those are two different levels. Now you have to be very careful here, because if you imagine that you could do more than you can actually do, and you aim for that, and then you don't get it, and you're disappointed, you'll feel upset. You could feel upset, and then you may not want to try the next time. And that's why people are somewhat precautious on the idea that we're about to describe. They're going to say, don't set your sights too high, because if you don't accomplish it, you'll be disappointed. But we're saying something which is not only not disappointing, but it's extremely motivating. When you get to the next world, HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't hold you accountable for what you weren't able to do. But he does hold you accountable if you didn't strive to get towards beyond your capabilities. Like it says later on in Pirkei Avos, Ein alecha hamalacha ligmor. You didn't come to this world for the accomplishment that you can do in this world. You come to this world to strive for the will of Hashem to be fulfilled in the world, whether or not you can accomplish it. Let's go to this mashal again and understand it much deeper. HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes down to the servants and he says, I want you to do 30 kor. And he knows that it's impossible. He knows that it's land of Ziboris. He knows they could only do 5 if they would want to. But he wants them to be thinking, we will try and get to 30 kor. We wish we could do 30 kor. and they'll do 5. Now, what's the nafkamina? Anyway, they can only do 5. The nafkamina is, and this is going to be the theme of this Mishnah. This Mishnah is about how you identify your inner self. It's not about what you accomplished. That's going to be the theme all the way through, like the Maharal wrote. This is the tools of how to accomplish Ben Adam Latzmo. Ben Adam Latzmo isn't defined by what at the end of the day you were able to do. It's defined by your will and your desire. Just think about someone who has a very, very strong Yetzer Hara, and he pushes off and pushes off and pushes off, and at some point he gives in. HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't judge him by the end result. HaKadosh Baruch Hu judges him by his strong-willed power to push off and push off and push off. It could be that HaKadosh Baruch Hu won't punish him at all for giving in eventually, if that was actually beyond his control. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu will give reward for his pushing off and pushing off and pushing off. Because from Hashem's perspective, we are not judged alone solely by our final result. We are primarily judged by our inner alignment with Hashem, by our will to do the will of Hashem. And therefore, a person will leave the world after 120 years, and they will get to Shamayim, and they will see there that it's attributed to them, mitzvahs and mitzvahs and mitzvahs and mitzvahs. And they say, Hashem, look, I thought this was the world of Emes, and I know myself. I never learned that amount, and I never learned all of that, and I never did all those mitzvahs, I never helped all those people. Hashem, isn't this the world of truth? And Hashem will say, yes, this is the world of truth. And in the world of truth, you are judged by your desire, by your will, by your inner ratzon. There's a principle in halacha. If a person wants to fulfill a mitzvah, but is anus, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives you reward as if you did it. That's what this is saying. Kashani latzmi ma'ani. If I only look at myself as what's grounded here in this world, the ani refers to my inner self. Ukashani, and when I devote my inner self, le'atzmi, like the etzem, what I see here in this world, then ma'ani, I'm so limited. Why am I limiting myself to what I'm physically able to do in this world? I should be saying, Hashem, what is your will from me? Your will from me is to daven Shemona Esrei from the beginning to the end with kavanah throughout. So Hashem, that is my will. That is my will, Hashem, and I'm going to start davening Shemona Esrei with the desire that I'll have kavanah throughout. What happens when I lose kavanah after a few minutes, few seconds? Doesn't matter. HaKadosh Baruch Hu judges me by my will. When I get to Shamayim after 120 years, it will be written there, Rav Davidson had kavanah throughout the whole of Shemona Esrei. And I'll say, Hashem, that's not what happened. I remember very clearly that I didn't. And Hashem will say, yes, but I judge you not by what happened because you're limited. You have a Yetzer Hara. The land was Ziboris. I'm not holding you accountable for that. Anus, I'm holding you accountable for what your desire was. In Shemaim, it's written, you had kavanah the whole way to davening. In Shemaim, I'll get there and it will say, he learned Kol HaTorah Kula. And I'll say, Hashem, yeah, I tried. I really tried. But the amount I had to give to my family and to the boys and to all other technical things I had to take care of, at the end of the day, I only had an hour or two to learn a day, Hashem. Hashem will say, no, it's written here that you learn 24 hours a day. I said, Hashem, I was sleeping and I was involved in other things. You were sleeping, you were honest. You went to the bathroom, you were honest. You were involved in Parnasa, you were honest. But your desire was to learn 24 hours a day. In Shamayim, it's written, you learn 24 hours a day. That's the truth. So whenever you read a Medrash Chazal and it seems to you like it doesn't make sense, you should know there's gold written there. When you read that Medrash, it seems unfair. Hashem, how can you demand from us more than we can do? And the answer is, Hashem doesn't demand for you an action more than you can do. HaKadosh Baruch Hu demands from you in your desire and your will more than you can do. Because that's the inner alignment with the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that's the second stage. Kashani la'atzmi. And when my inner will is only for the etzem, means the physical, the atzamot is my bones, the physical element of my expression as well. Ma'ani, it's a limiting belief. Not on the level of the psychology limiting belief that I could do more in this world. On Shamayim, I could do more spiritually because my real sense of inner self is the will that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives me. And just briefly, the last section, Ve'imloach shav eimatai. Here Rabbeinu Yonah says a profound insight. People think to themselves, I have to daven mincha. I have time when I can daven mincha. From the beginning of Zman till the end of Zman. I could either do it now, or I could do it in a few minutes. Either way, I'll do the mitzvah. That's an understanding from the perspective of the mitzvah being fulfilled. But there's a deeper understanding. What about from your perspective of what you're doing with your time? If you don't daven now, you could daven later. So davening, from davening's perspective, will take place either way. But this moment, you have an obligation of avodas Hashem. And if you don't daven now, or you don't learn Torah now, or don't do something valuable now, that moment has passed. And that moment will never return. Don't view avodas Hashem as the mitzvah has to be fulfilled, and I'll see within my time when I'll do it. If I don't do it now, I'll do it in an hour or two, or in 5 minutes. Because this moment right now, you were brought down into this world to be fulfilling Torah and mitzvahs in every single moment. Ve'im lo achshav, and if you don't use your time for service to HaKadosh Baruch Hu at this moment, matai, that time will never return. That time is passing. So the perspective of, I'll do the mitzvah from the mitzvah's sake, it will happen anyway, is a lower level of viewing it. But we're talking about one's own self-image from your perspective. Comes the Yetzer Hara and says, if you don't do it now, you could do it later. And so you think to yourself, it's true, I will definitely do it later. I'll set an alarm on my phone and I'll do it later. So the mitzvah was done. But what about you? What about your time that Hashem brought you down into this world to fulfill this mitzvah? So let's just review what we said. The ani is the neshama, the inner sense of self. Im ein ani li, mi li. If my inner self is not being aligned with the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, then what am I? I'm not doing the will of Hashem. We explained that based on Rabbeinu Yonah, and then also based on Rav Dessler, that inspiration can only come from within. It will never be lasting if it comes from without. And there's always a fight between your neshama and the Yetzer Hara about your inner sense of identity of who the I is. Then we moved on to the second section, Kashani la'atzmi ma'ani, and the depth behind understanding that, based on the mashal that Rabbeinu Yonah brings, is the idea of limiting beliefs. A person should always envision that he can do much more than he can think that he could do, not only because he'll be more productive in this world, but also because it's Hashem's will that you align your will with Him. And He will be judging you not by your actions, but rather by your desires and your will. And that will be the real sense of self you will have in the future life. And the last stage, if the Yetzer Hara has failed in his first two senses, and you've already aligned yourself with good, and you recognize you can do even more than that, the Yetzer Hara has one more trick up his sleeve. And he says, okay, you're right, you're a tzaddik, and you're a neshama, and you should even envision yourself to be greater than you are, align yourself with Hashem. However, it doesn't have to be right now. You could do all of that in 5 minutes. Right now, you're a bocher in yeshiva, you've got a lot of Yetzer Haras at this stage. Right? When you become a family man and you have a wife and a family, you'll be more stable, then you can start working over at Hashem. Then you get to being a family man. You have parnasa, you have children. When you retire, then you can do it. When you get retired, then the Yetzer Hara says to you, an old man like you're already limited in your ways. Who can do it? So Yetzer Hara, even if he fails in the first two senses, that you've already aligned yourself with being a tzaddik, he still comes to you with one more claim of it doesn't have to be right this moment. And the Rabbeinu Yonah's answer to that is, in a second interpretation, his answer to that is, yes, maybe the mitzvahs could be done later. But this moment, Hashem wills you into existence to fulfill His will right now. And that moment will never come back. Im lo achshav emasai. Yeshar koach. Have a good night.